do you get, like, how do you, sorry, I'm being specific here, but how do you work that out with the writers and all of that? How does that all work with them then financially, that they all end up?
So you basically say, well, what I do is I say, this is the show we want to do. We think it'll be great. This is what it will require from you in terms of time and the period to rehearse it, how much commitment you have to do, and we will pay you a modest amount of money up front to do the show, and then as and when the show continues and goes on, you'll have either a small amount of money per show or a percentage of box office or buy-ins. So it's not a risk for them in that they'll lose money, but it is something that they will have to invest their time for a modest amount of money at the beginning.
Yeah.
On the basis that if the show goes on to make more money, they'll get more. But even in that case, you're not going to get someone, a director or writer or a lighter or anyone else coming on board with the Cabaret show because they think, oh, I'm going to make a huge amount of money in this show as well. It's, you have to be able to find a way to try and make it worth their while, be able to pay them something that is reasonable for them to be able to give up the time that they give up.
The difficulty also is expected performance. Have you got 6 nights in 2015?
Yeah.
And they might be 3 weeks apart, but you have to commit now and say you are available.
My new show that I open at Adelaide Cabaret Festival next week is being booked into a theatre to open their season in 2016. I haven't opened it yet.
Yeah.
That was the theatre that I closed.
Yeah.
Go Your Own Way at last week.
Yeah.
So that's.
But that's very true about performers, and especially cabaret performers who also do some theatre performance. So at least, when I said to her I wanted to tour this in February, March 2015, I have to know that I have a really solid block of gigs for her, so that if she, because she was in the South Pacific on the she's done all these shows, if she gets offered a long running show, she's going to have to turn down a big book because she has to know that there's some kind of solid thing that is going to have solid income for her, and make it work for a while in terms of career.
I think that's the other thing too, that as a performer, if you do want to go down that path and create your own show, you do have to be prepared to ride out some pretty lean times when the times come. Because if you look at the figures of theatrical producing, and George will bear this out probably very strongly, you'd have to be an idiot to go into it because it is so difficult to make money out of theatre. If you hit a winner, yes, it's good. Even things like like Pig Sheep, Monkey Bar, Children's Theatre, sold out in Cessnock 2 shows, so that's great. Average ticket price, $7. 1% of that. 7 cents a seat. So when you actually look at it dispassionately, it is very difficult.
I mean, the good news is that apart, it sounds all doom and gloom, but actually artists, cabaret artists, comics, those sorts of people, if you're just an actor, you've only got state theatre companies and television films to get your life, your money from. If you do what we do, which is you have all these other streams you're actually in a better position than a lot of other actors.
And you get to choose your team. That's what I love about it as well. You get to choose who you work with. You're in creative control of your project, and it's so awesome. It's so satisfying, and it's so much fun. And then you get to
and actually
work with so many.
That leads me to one thing which I really wanted to say today. Thinking about the different aspect that I can bring to this conversation, which is know what you want to do and have a really strong direction before you start collaborating with it. Because if you end up with me or Nigel or Max Lambert or somebody to collaborate with as a musical director, we're going to be wanting to help you drive it, but sometimes we might railroad you because we go, oh, look, this is a good way to do it. And if you aren't really secure with the ideas that you have and the way you want to deliver it, then it's easy for you to capitulate and go, oh yeah, all right, let's do it that way. But then it's not your voice. So I think one of the things about putting a show together and collaborating with people is to be really clear and really strong with your ideas, that you know the direction you want to go in, you know what you want to say and how you want to say it. Certainly then you're open to have the discussion with me as a musical director about the best way to execute that. But if you go in sort of on the back foot, you might end up doing a show that is not your show. So just be aware of that.
And I would add to that too, actually, that I've been developing Jan for years, trying to get Jan her own television series, and in the pathway of that. I went to a woman who's a really highly successful TV producer, film producer, who loved it and wanted to produce it. And she said to me on our second meeting or something, she said, right, Jan is, she's too mean. We can't make her so mean, she's going to be nice. And I just thought, what? I was like, oh my God, that's not, like, but that's the whole core. Like, she doesn't mean to be mean, but she's just very honest, and she thinks her honesty is really helpful, but actually her honesty is brutal, and, you know, and I just thought, if you cannot make her the hero, she's not the hero, she's, you know, and I think it's really important, that thing about, you know, there's a very fine line between not listening to all these wonderful people that you surround yourself with, you know, and not listening to them and actually going, no, I want to do it this way, being a control freak, and knowing just the core of what it is. You know, there's a real core to what you write or to come up with that is just, it's a deal breaker, you know, and so obviously you end up working with her, but it is, you've got to know that, but then also be really open, as we talked about Marika doing her show and you know, developing your show and being open to, you know, I did that with Jan as well, which, you know, I had several performances in Canberra, I developed it down there where I come from, you know, and in Sydney, where we just had audiences come along and fill out a form. They had a, you know, afterwards they had to fill out a form. And it is confronting. It's so confronting when, you know, they write, I don't understand that whole bit. And they're thinking, oh, I've worked on that for like 20 months, you know. But you have to get that right. You know, absolutely. You lose perspective and you need to be open to that.
In fact, Barry Humphries still tells the story of, you know, he created Edna in 1956. And when he first did it in Melbourne, and he was going to come to Sydney, and people said, oh, look, it's really good, it's a very good character, but it'll never work in Sydney. So then he went to Sydney, and of course it worked in Sydney, and then they said, oh, it works in Australia, but don't go to London. And of course he went to London, and it worked. I mean, it's because he had very strong belief in what he was doing, but people will always say, oh, it's good, but...
Yeah, there's a lot of naysayers. Can I ask you just, when you started back then, how did you start? Did it straight away go to a... Like a, first venue that you ever played?
Edna was created, I'll give you the small version. He was working with what became the Melbourne Theatre Company. They were travelling on a bus. Peter Ray Lawler was directing them in 12th Night. Zoe Caldwell was in it. A few other people. They were on the bus, and they used to travel between the country towns. And Barry used to sit in the back. Every time they'd arrive at a country town, the Women's Association would put on morning tea or dinner for them, which was either lamingtons or cold chicken.
That still happens as well.
And so Barry started this thing in the back of the bus, annoying everybody by doing the speech that they were about to hear at the next town as the Lady Mayoress. And when it came time for the Christmas concert, Ray said, Barry, you should do that character you're doing. He said, oh, no, I'll write it, but Zoe can do it. And so he said, no, you do it. So he got up and he did that character at the Christmas concert. And that was the beginning.
Amazing. Yeah, fantastic. And I want to ask, because we've talked a lot about not being able to make money and whatever, that's a great example of someone who, you know, invented this character and it's just gone gangbusters, obviously. There are also, I'd like to talk and open it up to the entire panel here, but about, there is a wonderful international cabaret circuit that if you get on that road, it is really lucrative, and it can be like, and it can be something that you just, that's what you do for the rest of your life. I mean, people like Paul Capsis from this country, Meow Meow, you know, have done incredible things overseas with their characters and with their work. Does anyone want to speak on?
Well, I think to succeed on the international circuit, don't do it in English for a start. Have puppets if you can. Do it in German or something really pretentious. Or have a unique, I mean, Paul is extraordinary because he's very unique. Just is what he is.
Yeah.
And that uniqueness transcends all national boundaries. But most of us aren't unique in that kind of way. Don't do political satire. Jokes about Tony Abbott do not really travel very far at all. But
jokes about or jokes alike?
But I think Andrew was right that I never ask for audience feedback. If they don't like it, fuck them.
It's art. You don't get it.
And you can only do what you think is good. particularly in comedy, you can only do what you think is funny. But I do agree that you must think of the audience. There's no point in doing it except for an audience. There's no point in doing it for yourself.
It's not about you.
It's not about you. It's
really
about,
isn't.
and someone's got to pay solid money and make an effort and go and see you. You have to give them something in return. So you don't have to second guess an audience, but you have to try and say, well, at least it's got to have some appeal. There's no point in doing it. Unless you're in a subsidised theatre company where you can afford to take a few more risks. But even then, what's the point of performing if not for an audience? There is no point. But it is difficult to make money and to get on any circuit, let alone the international.